America is a terrifying place at the moment. Flooding, racial tension, threats of nuclear war, and Trump is obsessed with what's in soldiers' pants.
President Trump has now signed his directive dealing with transgenders in the military.
He said, where else but on Twitter, that transgender people
cannot serve in any capacity in the military.
Do you know why he wants to kick them out? Because they're a financial burden. Trans surgery costs so much money. So much. Does it? The medical cost of having transgender troops in the US forces is estimated to be $5 million a year. To put that into context, Trump has spent over $24 million flying to Florida to play golf. Trump wants 18 holes. Some of these guys are only asking for one. To quote my mum, he's allowed to grab a woman and they're not allowed to get rid of theirs. It don't seem right, Russ. Trans healthcare in total would cost less than 0.001% of the US military budget. It's $5 million, right? $5 million. That is nothing to them. They spend $41 million every year on Viagra. Their soldiers must look like they're playing Quidditch. No wonder the Pentagon's massive. They need the space. Like, excuse me. I don't know what I've been told. I can't get my to fold. What I'm saying is $5 million is not a lot, especially when you read what they've wasted money on in the past. They spent $43 million on a gas station in Afghanistan that was never used. They spent $28 million on forest camouflage for Afghani soldiers, which is a great idea until you buy a map and realise there's no forests in Afghanistan. They even spent $50,000 on a study to find out if elephants can sniff out bombs. They can't. And even if they can, there aren't any elephants in Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan. Even if they had this gift, how are you going to communicate with them? Just, psst, is it a bomb? Is that a yes? Sergeant, is it a bomb or not? What do you mean you've taken the Viagra? The point I'm making... Not now. The point I'm making, they're not a financial burden. And Trump's not just attacking soldiers, he's also attacking trans kids.
Donald Trump's government has overturned guidance which allowed transgender pupils to use toilets matching their gender identity.
It's unbelievable. They need the president to educate people so they don't get bullied every day, but instead, he makes it harder for them to take. He seems to think the only reason that people are changing their sex is so they can perv in toilets, which is madness. If it was really about the bogs, you would never get a woman becoming a man who would go from the majesty of the ladies to the horror of the gents. It would be like going from this to this. And that's just having a piss. The funny thing is, when that White Walker ran at Cersei, I actually myself. The president should be sticking up for them, not making their life harder, because they deal with a lot of ignorance. I was at a gig in America in the summer, and this guy was like, what are we supposed to call transgender people? And you're like, their name. This other bloke went, transgender people upset God. Yeah, well, God upsets me. He could have selected any noise for the fox to make when it makes love, and that's what he went with. Well, I think we've absolutely nailed that, don't you? Something has to change. Trump's creating a society where it's OK to hate trans people. Did you know that in 48 out of 50 states in America, there's a thing called the trans panic clause? This is an actual thing. Look at this.
Trans panic is a defense wherein defendants argue that the victim's gender identity excuses, mitigates, or justifies violence.
That means it's a legal defense for murder to say you panicked because you thought someone was trans. How does that even work? Who panics around transgender people? They're a person, they're not a spider. Oh, someone get me a big glass. Also, if you think transgender people are so threatening that you need to murder them to stay safe, do you know where they'd be useful? Army! In fact, Trump should put them in the army just to piss off ISIS. Think about it, nothing would make them angrier. We should fill the US Army with everything they hate. Gays, women who can read, Jews, Peppa Pig. We'll have to keep the Jews and Pepper apart, but the point I'm making is that Trump is a divisive bigot. It's always like, Americans won't like trans soldiers, they'll be so upset. F*** off. Americans have no problem with diversity in warfare. Think about it. Down the years, they've watched humans fight with all sorts. They love these guys, they adored these two, and they can't get enough of this lot. Look at that. A man, 2 aliens, a raccoon, and a massive tree. I bet even Trump loved that. Just, I am Groot. I bet you money he's looked at himself in the mirror and gone, let's make America Groot again. So Groot. Trump is the president. He should support every person who volunteers their life for their country. Who's more of a burden to the US Army? Someone who's gone through gender realignment and still turns up for their job? Or a man in charge of the nuclear codes despite having all the negotiating skills of an elephant on Viagra in a minefield?